What's up, guys? It is the Sound Alchemist, and I'm here to give you 40 facts on the Warhammer 40k universe. My favorite, the Tau Empire. And we will be talking not about their war gear or their individual characters, but we will be going over a conflict known as the Battle of Mugulath Bay. Without further ado, let's begin this lore. So the Battle of Mugulath Bay occurred on the Imperial planet known as Agrellan during the Tau's Third Sphere expansion. It involved the Imperium and the Tau Empire. The Imperium's forces was led by the Chapter Master Corvic Severax of the Raven Guard and Captain Corsaro Khan of the White Scars, and they were pitted against Commander Shadowsun and the Ethereal Supreme Aun Va. This battle was the first major engagement between the Imperium and the Tau Empire. It was centered on the hive world of Agrellan. The human forces had amassed a substantial force of Imperial Guard, which were heavily dug in and supported by heavy Leman Russ battle tanks. The White Scars, under Captain Corsaro Khan, also arrived to lend their aid. The Imperial defenses surrounding each hive were formidable, heavy walls topped with bunkers, overlooking an open wasteland rigged with mines and tank traps. Bypassing or landing behind these positions was difficult, as they would simply find themselves trapped within the twisting streets of the hive cities and were surrounded on all sides. However, due to the strategic importance of Agrellan, that was the gateway to the Dovar system, the Third Sphere commander Shadowsun realized that it would be impossible to simply bypass this world. So to bolster Tau morale for the battle ahead, the Ethereal Supreme Aun Va personally arrived to meet with the Tau forces and were ready to enter battle. To crack this formidable planet, Shadowsun herself planned and led the assault. 20 hunter cadres simultaneously struck key hive nods, and the vanguard of each strode to the latest and mightiest Tau weapon, the XV-104 Riptide battlesuit. This was the first combat deployment of the Riptide, and they proved invaluable during the battle, using their agility to bypass defensive points and blowing apart Imperial Guard bunkers and tanks with their heavy weapons. Better still for the Tau, much of the Imperial anti-tank weaponry proved useless against the Riptide's armor. Even the firing of an Imperial Deathstrike missile proved unable to penetrate the Riptides once they had activated their Nova Reactor shields. Upon reaching the enemy walls, the Riptides engaged their jetpacks and created breaches that would later be exploited by the Fire Warrior teams. Taking advantage of the situation, Shadowsun then began her mass ground assault, led by Hammerhead tanks, Manta gunships, and Sun Shark bombers. Despite being outnumbered by Imperial tanks 6-1, the Tau emerged victorious, thanks to their planning, maneuverability, and long-range firepower. It was during this engagement that Longstrike gained infamy for destroying countless Leman Russ tanks, and led the Tau grav tanks into the streets of Agrellan's capital. Here the Tau were able to accurately Hammerhead firepower to quickly suppress any Imperial Guard forces that attempted to move out of cover and engage incoming waves of Fire Warriors. Meanwhile, the White Scars Space Marines were proving deadly, but their small numbers and mere raids could not turn the tide of war. Shadowsun then led a counterattack against the Imperial forces that turned into a complete rout in what is now known as the Path of Blood. By this point, the Raven Guard 6th Company, under Chapter Master Corvin Severax, had made himself known, revealing his intent to evacuate the planet as he saw that Agrellan was lost. But with the Tau rapidly approaching the broken remaining Imperial positions, delaying actions had to be made. Thus, the Raven Guard, in cooperation with Cadian Imperial Guard and the Knights of House Terran, held back the Tau from besieging Agrellan Prime's hive city. However, Tau Riptides brought down the Knights, and a flanking maneuver by Shadowsun saw the Raven Guard and Cadians entrapped. Severax then played his trump card, and the Freeblade, known as the Obsidian Knight, entered the battle. Severax had been aware of his skill in battle and secretly transported him to Agrellan. The Obsidian Knight was able to prevent the Tau encirclement, and he gave the Imperials enough time to evacuate. This was indeed a bright day for the Tau, who saw a foe with vastly superior numbers crushed. Moreover, no less than 12 advanced weapon prototypes were successfully deployed in the campaign, with only the fusion reactor meltdown that destroyed Agrellan's move proving a failure. After the battle, Agrellan became a new Tau sept, renamed Mugulath. With Mugulath in their hands, almost nearby Imperial worlds fell to the Tau in very short order. Following Shadowsun's victory, she became overconfident and pursued the retreating Imperials, which led to a stinging defeat at the Battle of Volturus. Eventually, the Imperium launched a counterattack that saw Mugulath destroyed in a second battle. But following the disastrous Imperial defeat at Mugulath Bay, Imperial commanders held a council of war and agreed to stage a deliberately slow retreat toward the feudal world of Volturus. They hoped that they would draw in the pursuing Tau commander Shadowsun and allow for an ambush that would annihilate the Xenos. The Imperials prepared most of their ambush in Volturus' most defensible area, the fortress of Furion Peak. The Tau, overconfident in their orbital scans, vastly underestimated their defeated enemy and did not realize that forces including Colonel Strachan's Catachan Jungle Fighters, Corsaro Khan's White Scars, and Shadow Captain Shrike's Raven Guard all had taken up positions on the planet. The Tau were fooled by the efforts of the White Scar's Stormseer, Subabeth, who cast a psychic mist over their positions. Thus, when Shadowsun's army made planetfall at the foot of Furion Peak, the Imperial trap closed. The Tau were baffled by their psychic abilities of the White Scar Stormseers, who had led a charge to engage their foes at close range. Shadowsun managed to hunt down and kill Subadeth, but the Imperials were closing their trap, and scores of Imperial Knights soon appeared, blasting the Tau army until the road before them had been destroyed. Many of Shadowsun's most trusted teams had to give their lives to secure her escape. She swore that after this battle, their sacrifice would not be in vain, and that she would redouble her efforts in the third sphere of expansion. This led to Shadowsun executing the Perfectia campaign shortly thereafter. The second Agrellan campaign also is known by the Cleansing of Agrellan, or the Second Battle of Mugulath Bay, and it was a major Imperial offensive launched against the Tau Empire in the closing years of the 41st millennium. The combatants for the Imperium included Lord General Trosker, Lord Admiral Hawk, Chapter Master Caven Shrike, Captain Corsaro Khan, High King Tybalt, Magos Akolothius, and Colonel Starkzan. While on the Tau, they had Commander Shadowsun, Commander Farsight, and the Ethereal Supreme Aunva. Following the Tau victory in the Perfectia campaign, half of the triumphant Tau forces under Ethereal Supreme Aunva returned to the Sept of Mugulath Bay, previously known as Agrellan before it was captured by the Tau. They were here for refitting and redeployment. However, it soon became apparent that the Imperium had simply shrugged off the loss of Perfectia, instead choosing to send a massive retribution fleet to Mugulath Bay, determined to retake this planet. The Imperial naval contingent of Task Force Retribution was led by the 478th Battle Fleet of Ultima Segmentum, under Admiral Hawk. After reaching Mugulath Bay's orbit, Hawk determined that the orbital defenses were too heavy to begin ground forces. Thus, he called upon the Space Marines of the Raven Guard under the newly appointed Chapter Master Caven Shrike to clear the orbital platforms. Shrike was successful, setting off meltabombs in the largest platforms of plasma reactors and created a devastating chain reaction. This invasion took the Tau by surprise, who were shocked by the scale and speed of the human assault. A massive orbital battle took place as Shadowsun ordered Mugaloth Bay's surface batteries to open fire. The Imperial fleet took heavy losses, but after days of battle, they secured the space above Mugaloth Bay, and they pounded the weapon batteries into silence with orbital bombardment. It was then that the Imperial Navy fighters and Space Marine drop pods launched an atmospheric assault. Shrike correctly predicted that Shadowsun would attempt to destroy incoming Imperial troop transports with the remaining hidden battleships, and the Tau deception was blocked by Raven Guard attack craft. Imperial Guard forces under Kedian Lord General Trosker began to land massive amounts of forces on Agrellan, protected by screens of Raven Guard scouts and white scars. Trosker and Shrike deployed forces at 3 primary locations on the planet. These 3 fronts, the central, the eastern, and the western spearheads, would converge at the largest Tau installation at the old capital hive, Agrellan Prime. While Trosker commanded the operations in space, Colonel Starscan would lead the front. Starscan led the western front after securing their landing sites and pushing across Agrellan's desert plains. The Tau did not give full resistance. Instead, they used the air-cast fighters in strafing runs and hit-and-run tactics, while using the Hammerhead gunships for more firepower. Imperial morale was maintained thanks to Thunderhawk support from the Raven Guard. However, they were ambushed by Tau forces under Fireblade Ru Var. The Tau armored contingent was led by the legendary tank ace Longstrike, who wreaked a bloody havoc on Imperial armor with a Hammerhead gunship from its concealed position. During the fight, he clashed with Knight Commander Pask, a renowned tank commander in the Imperium. However, after dealing enough damage, the Tau withdrew as quickly as they appeared, but were blocked off suddenly by the appearance of Acadian's super heavy tank contingent led by Pask himself. Shadowsun then deployed reinforcements, dropping in battlesuit teams from Orcas and blunting the Imperial counterattack. After the battle at the Black Ruins, the Imperial Western Spearhead began its move on the largest Tau military complex on Agrellan. A Space Marine drop pod assault threw the first Tau defensive line into disarray, while Imperial Guard and Skitarii elements moved on the second and the third. Stubborn and resilient Skitarii forces, backed by Cybernetica robots, moved forward while Imperial Guard followed from behind. After a vicious fight that saw heavy casualties for both sides, the Imperials managed to clear the complex with Sicarian infiltrators. It was then that the Mechanicum's Holy Requisitioner arrived at the battlefield, and it was then that Shadowsun sprung her trap. However, the assault was clumsy and hastily assembled, and it became apparent that the Imperials would endure this assault. It was then that the skies turned red. Shocking all sides, Commander Farsight himself appeared in the fray, followed by the legendary 8, and they led a massive Montka assault on the Imperials. Colonel Starscan realized that victory had been snatched from his grasp, and he attempted to withdraw, moving back to Black Fossil Ridge amid a heavy supporting bombardment. They were joined by Space Marines, who soon all evacuated by Thunderhawk except for the White Scars contingent under Corsaro Khan. A vicious battle erupted all across Black Fossil Ridge as the Tau caught up with the retreating Imperials. Tau momentum was stalled in the face of heavy Ogryn assaults, but Farsight and the 8 managed to break the counterattack. As Starksan prepared to make his final stand, Imperial armored contingents under Pask and Skitarii cohorts appeared as reinforcements. The Tau would have been bested, but Storm Surge battlesuits, Longstrike, and Farsight managed to turn the tide. It was then that the Imperial reinforcements arrived from the south, further outnumbering the Tau. The Tau had to switch to hit-and-run strikes, pitting down the Imperials. Commander Shadowsun came to the aid of Farsight, deploying her own forces against incoming Imperial Knights, led by Tybalt of House Terran, and the almighty Obsidian Knight. Shadowsun allowed both her and Farsight's troops to withdraw in good order. It was now the hour of truth. the time that the Imperials revealed their trump card, an execution force of the Officio Assassinorum, which was waiting in high orbit. Even if Agrellan could not be liberated from the Xenos, the Imperials were determined that the Tau would lose their best and brightest. Meanwhile, the Tau continued to make hit-and-run attacks, and Space Marines conducted dozens of sorties, destroying vital cities and engaging in a running war with Pathfinders, while the Imperial Guard under Trosker were driving on the Tau capital on the ruins of Agrellan Prime. The assault on the city of Lo Vash Tau, as the Tau called it, began with a Space Marine droplet assault under Shrike and Corsaro Khan. The Space Marines endured vicious fighting, attempting to fight off Tau Pathfinder and drone sniper team ambushes. It was then that the main Imperial assault began, commenced with a thundering artillery bombardment. They were followed by rows of infantry and armor, advancing beneath a storm that made communications difficult. Imperial super heavy tanks and knights were the last wave, forming the Imperium's own killing blow. Lord Tybalt and House Terran struck in the thickest of the fighting, battling the Tau Storm Surge battlesuits. As the fighting raged, Tau Pathfinders began being picked off one by one. The Assassin Execution Force had arrived. They were followed by Darkstrider and a force of elite Pathfinders determined to prevent the Assassins from carrying out their missions. Nonetheless, a Vindicare assassin was able to get into position and fire a shot at Farsight, who was saved thanks to the effort of Commander Bravestorm. As chaos gripped the Tau command, Darkstrider managed to take down the Vindicare, losing all of its Pathfinders in the process. Farsight was then assaulted by an Eversor assassin, who took down several Crisis battlesuits. Luckily, Alblatai 9-0 engaged the crazed warrior, becoming badly injured but allowing the rest of the 8 to take down the Eversor. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Shadowsun managed to rally Tau forces and wither wave after wave of Imperial assaults. However, while in her mobile command post, Shadowsun was beset by a Calidus assassin disguised as an ethereal Aun Kar. Shadowsun was wounded, but with the aid of her Pathfinder bodyguards, she managed to take down the shapeshifter. The threat was not alleviated for the Tau leadership, as Ethereal Supreme Aun Va had become trapped on Mugalath Bay. He was assaulted by a sinister Calexis assassin in his hidden bunker in the ruins of Agrellan Prime. The Calexis mentally overwhelmed all of Aun Va's bodyguards before pursuing and killing the supreme leader of the Tau Empire. At the battle, Imperial losses had been grievous and the Space Marines were now evacuating. Far from cowardice, the White Scar's Third Company was ordered to immediately return to Jagoras, which was now being besieged by the Red Corsairs. Shortly after, Trosker had been replaced and commanded by a new Lord General who ordered an immediate withdrawal from Agrellan. During the withdrawal efforts, Starksan was wounded, and the storms hindering the Imperial advance mysteriously subsided. The Imperials withered brutal ambushes and air attacks during their withdrawal, though the majority managed to make it off-world. As a final spiteful act, Admiral Hawkt performed exterminatus on Agrellan once the evacuation was complete. Millions of Tau, along with those humans still left behind, burned as a specialized Imperial torpedo set the planet's gaseous northern hemisphere aflame. As the Imperials withdrew back into the warp, Commander Shadowsun was aboard a Tau starship, recovering from her earlier wounds. As for Farsight, he and his forces had vanished during the closing stages of the battle. Shadowsun was ordered to apprehend Farsight by the Ethereal Council, a task she reluctantly but loyally would carry out. In truth, Shadowsun had leaked the information to Farsight beforehand to give her former ally a head start in his escape. As for Farsight, he became determined to save the world of Thalassera from the hordes of the High Fleet Leviathan. And that concludes the second Agrellan campaign, aka the Battle for Mugalath Bay. So there it is, guys. Pretty epic, pretty awesome. You get to see some Imperial Guard in there, some Skitarii, Raven Guard, White Scars, and even Assassins go up against the Tau Empire. And they held their own. Yeah, Shadow Sun was kind of getting overwhelmed here and there, but boom, my boy Farsight came in and wrecked house. Really awesome. I wish GW would make a video game about this, because playing as either side would be badass. Because you get to fight in the desert, in the hive worlds, and it's just amazing because you get such a wide variety of Imperial and Tau forces on here. It's just awesome. So let me know what you guys think of this battle. What other battles do you want us to cover? That's all I've got for you guys. As always, I am the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I am signing out.